Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Friends, in this session we will be discussing about change management, and in that case we will be discussing what is change management, change and resistance to change, and the change models, and how you go about making changes. And the only constant in this world is change, and change is inevitable. Whether it is individual or the community or the organization, if we do not change, others will change and they will march ahead of us. That is why change will constantly occur, and we as individuals, as communities, or in organizations, we have to adapt to these changes. Otherwise, our business will not be competitive in the organization. And this change, as in the first slide you have seen, organizational strategic changes are transitions or modifications from existing state to a desired state for attaining efficiency and effectiveness. It may be new machines for production, or it may be a new product development, or it may process change how the work is carried out, or it may be vision realization, or plant automation, and so on. And the major alternations in the change process leads to people change, organizational structure change, and culture change. And by change, the organization gets the competitive advantage when it compare itself with similar type of industries, those who have not adapted the change. The evidence shows that 70% of the change throughout the globe fails, but still people are continuously eager for making change, because without change the society, individual and organization will be static. And these changes are of two types. One is the incremental change, another is the radical change or the transformational change. And the change, when we speak of, it should be a fit for one rather than fit for all. And change management is a process which needs to be looked into from the perspective of employees as well as from the perspective of the organization. Say for example, in 2005, IIT Kharagpur implemented ERP. Before to that, there was a series of meetings with the administrative staff, with the faculty members of the institute, with the student representatives. So, there was a series of meetings, because there was a concern among the people that with the job which we are doing manually earlier, that if the ERP or enterprise resource planning is implemented, many people fear that their jobs will be scrapped. Many apprehension was there, anxiety, tension was there, how the job is to be done. So, therefore, preparation stage in change management is most important for making a change, otherwise employee will not accept the change. And now today if you see beginning from the payment of the fees of the students to class allocation and workload of the teachers to administration of everything is managed through one ERP in IIT Kharagpur. And every time a new module is introduced. When EIP was first introduced, that was a radical change. Recently there was a module processing of research scholar events, research events, that was added. That is a incremental change to that. Similarly in organization, sometime or other, every occasions, incremental changes occurs. But a radical change, which is a new change, it is much more difficult and integrate to implement. And in any organization, change management must be looked from the perspective of the employees as well as from the perspective of the organization, because by making the change, both the parties are going to be affected. And unless the change is initiated, the organization is stable and it is in a state of equilibrium. This dismantling and assembling is a state of disequilibrium. If there is no change, then this is the state of equilibrium. If we are dismantling that, then it is a state of disequilibrium, and the organization will move from the equilibrium to disequilibrium state, again it will come to the equilibrium state by adopting the change management strategies. Say there may be, when you look at the change, there may be imbalance in the external and internal factors. That means the technology you are using is obsolete, leading to poor performance of the employees, and accordingly reward system for the employee is poor, and interpersonal conflict prevail in the organization between the management and the top management and the employees. So therefore, there is a imbalance between external and internal state, technology, economic prosperity of the firm, and these are some of the things which is the external environment. Internal environment, internal state is that individual performance is declining and there is reward system is low. So this is the internal systems. So there is a imbalance between external and internal systems. Then this disequilibrium can be brought to a state of equilibrium by adopting change management strategy, and change management strategy initiates like vision realization, plant modernization or strategic planning, as I mentioned earlier. And there is a constant rise in complexity and uncertainty, and if we do not change, then we will be obsolete and no more in the business. So organization should be open learning system. It can interpret and process information from the outside environment, and it can go for change initiatives, and if it initiates the change, then its competitive advantage will increase, and if you do not do, you will be sluggish and you will lag behind, and others, those who have adopted the change, they will march ahead of us. And there are resistance to change. The most likely response to a change proposal is a series of outraged objections, some relevant, for no proposer of change can have a thought out all the implications, some may be relevant and some may be irrelevant, just waiting for an opportunity to surface and using this one. So the most likely response to a change proposal is a series of outraged objections, and these objections can be relevant as well as it can be irrelevant. And and there can be various threats when you are taking the change initiative. There will be resistance, because threat of existing group power base, threat to existing resource allocation, structural built in inertia, cultural mindset inertia, entrenched interest, that may not be satisfied if you go for change, or it will hinder the, or it will be a hindrance for the change. Or organizations are coalition of interest and groups, and there may be a tension among the groups. If the production unit is introducing a new product, getting the input from the R&D, the marketing team in the same organizations may not agree to market the product, and there can be a balance or equilibrium of forces hammered out over a period, and change, once you initiate, this will bring the imbalance. And it is also seen that this is also seen in the Lewin's change model. It says that the change moves from unfreezing to freezing and finally to refreezing. Unfreezing is a phase where we recognize a need for change, because the organization is not becoming competitive, and as per the mandate of the organization, as per the vision of the organization, we are not able to realize the vision. So, therefore, recognizing the need for a change is called the stage of unfreezing. Then the stage of freezing is just making the change, that is attempting to create a new state of affairs, changing in either in technology or changing in a process or changing of the product. This is a change that has taken place. Then rephrasing, incorporating the changes, creating and maintaining a new organizational systems. So, Lewin's model speaks that we go from unfreezing, freezing to refreezing, and current time, if we are recognizing the change, then that is the current state, and future stage is that when we will incorporate the changes, creating and maintaining a new organizational systems, that is the new state. And in the Lewin's force field analysis, it says about the resisting forces as well as the facilitating forces. If the resisting and facilitating forces are more or less equal, then the change may proceed. If the resisting forces is much more higher than the forces for change or facilitating forces, then the change will not occur. Contrarily, if it is equilibrium, then you can increase the forces for change, and if the forces for change will increase, then the resistance for change will decline, and the change is more likely to be executed. So, therefore, both the processes occur simultaneously, and as the resistance to change declines, the forces for change strengthens. At that time, the force for change is created. Even at the balance stage, you can do it, as you have seen here at the balance stage. This is the stage of balance. But if the resisting forces are much more than the facilitating forces, then the initiating a change is very difficult. Therefore, we have to show a concern how you can neutralize the resisting forces, or you can increase the forces for change. And possible ways of dealing with resistance is that you can educate the employees, there will be free and open communication with the employees, meetings with them, and you seek their involvement and participation in each and every activity that the organization is going to do in this change management initiative, and create the facilitation and support by providing the resources, providing the manpower resource as well as the tangible hard resources, and if there is a conflict, negotiate and settle the conflict and come to agreement and seek the cooperation, or if nothing happens, then some amount of explicit or implicit coercion is required to deal with the resistance. And first is that you need to motivate employees to change, and most difficult change is there when the organization is doing well, and it must be real and not contrived. And if the organization is doing well, then a change initiative may not succeed so easily, because it is already in a growth trajectory. People will question what you are going to do by introducing the change, and we can also go for customer driven change, because now the customer is the king in business. And if the customers are not satisfied, then there will be adverse, they will not the product or the services that we offer. It will have the adverse consequences for firm. So therefore, we need to, whether you are giving a product or a service, most of the change needs to be customer driven. And these are some change management models I have given, which I am not going to discuss in detail, because the points will come later on the same points. You will see that there are different steps given for the change management model, but if you crystallize this, some 8 points will come out of it. So first is the realization of the vision. It speaks that whether the organization is big or small, they have a goal to achieve, because vision is a relatively long term goal. What you want to achieve in say coming 5 years, because the external business environment is volatile. So therefore, when we say vision, it may be for 5 or 10 years, not beyond that. It is not a permanent thing, because the external environment is changing, competitors are there in the market. If we do not position ourselves strongly as a business in business, then we may not sustain. So therefore, vision is a driving force, what the organization wants to do. If it is a technical company, technological company, then it can have a vision that technological excellence in our products, that may be one of the vision. So therefore, one has to see that vision is such a type of philosophical statement that it binds a group of people together, and it is the driving force for action. And need for change is created when there is a gap between the ongoing activities and the desired activities for vision realization. Because if the vision is there, if we are not able to realize the vision fully, because of the fact that certain activities are going on which is not complying with the requirement of the vision, and there are certain activities are desired to comply with the requirement of the vision. So therefore, when there is a gap between ongoing activities and the desired activities for vision realization, a need for change is felt. And then the second step is that, third step, first is the realization of vision and need for change, third is strategic planning. And every facet, once you go for a change, every facet of business needs careful planning, resources, change champions or change facilitators, alignment of all resources needed for change, that is the physical as well as the human resources. And then we have to select the change agents appropriately, or the change propellers or change champions. And the change champions are there, those who have the personal power rather than positional power, and by that personal power they can exert the influence on others for change, and at the same time they can be caring, influential and persuasive, and they must be go getters. So that this change champion's job is to convince the employees in the organization that we are going for change, so that the force will be created for the change and to go ahead. And next is the step is that we have to consider the change effects. The change and its process should be communicated to all employees, and why we are going for a change, that is most important, that is the exigency of change, why we are going for a change, and the change will affect the employees and the organization. Because if you are going for a considering the change effects, then employee will experience tension, employee will feel stress, they will think that their skills will be obsolete. Old people, those who are in the organization, they will say that it is a challenge to them and you cannot change their behavior and skills, because it is very difficult to teach the new tricks to the old dog. Similarly, there will be variety of effects that the employee can experience, and the organization side there may be more resources may be needed. It may be a financial resources, it may be physical resources, time and resources of the top management people, and so on. So, therefore, the effects of change on employees and organizations must be understood clearly, so that a readiness is created for change among all the constituents in the organization. Then execute the change. Once we are executing the change, means we are implementing the change. It may be a technology adaptation, it may be a new product development, as I mentioned. So, when you are executing change, nothing is certain at this stage, things may not move as you have planned. So, therefore, replanning after the response, because as you have planned earlier that this is the way, planning is there, the change will move, then in the same way the change may not move. So, every step we have to replan if it is not working really in the field, and reorienting our strategies and resolve the resistance and implement the change. Then evaluate, monitor and keep track of the change. Is the change outcome, if we implement, is the change outcome is desirable, because it is moving from undesirable to a desirable state. If it is a desirable state, then is the company going to make more profit? Is the company superior in technology compared to its competitors in the same set of industries? Is the company market share is increasing? These are some of the basic questions, because ultimately this is going to affect the company's performance. And if the change is made, can the company sustain the change? That is another question. If you make the change and if you cannot sustain over a period of time, then the above steps needs to be thought of from 1 to 7 again. Because if IIT Kharagpur implements the ERP, then every time it must have the ability to introduce the new modules into ERP. So, thereby we are not only sustaining the change, we are improving on what we are earlier. So, therefore, after the change is made, it evaluates the change. Change evaluation can be made whether the change is able to successfully executed, Are the change outcome desirable? Can the change be sustained? And if we sustain, can we make improve upon the change? Otherwise, you replan and repeat the above steps and make the change institutionalized and internalized. Because if you institutionalize and internalize the change, then there will be organizational stability, employee performance will go up, because any change will move from a undesirable to a desirable state, and ultimately it will be reflected in the performance indicator of the company, like its financial performance, like return on assets, its market share and its employee performance, all will improve. And if you analyze all these stages, then three things are coming out of it. One is that to make the change, one is to plan for change. Planning is thinking before doing, is the planning. So, the planning must be done for the change, and then the appropriate steps must be taken for the execution of the change or implementation of the change, and after the change is made, then there must be assessment of the change, whether you are successfully able to make the change management. And change management will never succeed until the initiatives comes from the top management. And any attempt to institute the change management in a system, it requires the collaboration of all the stakeholders. Otherwise, resistance will be there, because it is a completely rehauling of the systems, completely changing of the systems. So, therefore, there will be lot of resistance will be there, and it will hinder the change implementation. Thank you.